Hi, I'm Terry, and this is It's About Writing. Today we have Jarm Del Boccio, and I'm so glad to have her here. She's a children's fiction writer. And Jarm, why don't you just tell us about yourself and your writing and what it is you do? Start with that.
Okay, thank you. It's so good to be on, Terry, and to share with your audience about my writing and who I am. So yes, I love to write. I love middle graders. I was a former teacher and librarian, and I was an only child, so I didn't when I was younger. So I didn't have a lot. I didn't have siblings, but I loved kids, and I love to write to them. I love to inspire them, and history is my go-to for inspiration. History and travel. I just going to museums and taking tours and finding out those little tidbits of information that my readers would love and be inspired by is really, really what I do. So that's who I am. I can't do much travel during this time of COVID, but even going to a new town or a new museum or a new park or just doing something that I haven't done before is what gives me inspiration. So.
Great. And do you have your book with you? Why don't you
I
share
do.
your book?
Yes, I do. It is called The Heart Changer. And I'll read the back, a little bit of the back for you, just to tell you it's a historical fiction. Some people might call it a middle grade biblical fiction. But here it is, the tagline. Can an Israelite captive, wrenched from all she loves, serve the very man who destroyed her village? Miriam is asked to do the impossible, serve the wife of Naaman, commander of the Syrian army. Clinging to treasured memories of home and faith, Miriam faces captivity with worry and bitterness. Little does she know the heart changer is wooing and preparing her for a greater mission, far beyond what she could imagine. This middle grade historical novel reflects the heartache and angst of a young refugee in a foreign land where all hope seems lost. And if
Wow.
there's one thing I want to share with my readers is hope. My faith is what keeps me alive and keeps me going. And all people need hope, especially kids. And I love to find the kids in Scripture, in the Bible, who have we hardly know anything about them, but they've made a huge impact on people's lives around them. And Miriam, the little servant girl, we don't know her name. She doesn't have a backstory. We know she was captive, taken from Israel, but she makes a huge difference in Naaman's life and in the people around her. So I like to bring her story to life so kids can say, you know, those Bible characters are a lot like me. Instead of saying, oh, that was back then and I can't really relate to them. I want to bring them alive.
Yeah, I love it. How old is Miriam in your book?
Miriam is about 12. She's 11, 12 years of age almost. And in those days, she would be considered almost an adult.
Right, right. Well, that's just great. And when did it come out?
Out last year, 2019, April 26th. So we're past the first year birthday, book birthday, as they call it. So yeah, so it's been, so I spent the year marketing, sharing it, doing little talks, whatever I can. It's a special genre, and it really attracts Christian kids, home educators, and their families. They're looking for good books about history, kind of classic books, that are written more in the classic way. And that's who I serve. So, I hope all kids will read it, but obviously every book is not for everybody. So.
Right, right. It's good to know your niche, right?
Yes, right. That's important. Very important.
We were kind of talking about that before we started recording. So maybe you can just share a little bit about branding.
Yes.
Oh, your journey in that.
Yes, it is an ongoing journey. I think as a writer and an author, one of the most important things I need to know and other writers need to know is their brand. What motivates them? What inspires them? What do they stand for? Why do they write what they write? What do they want their audience to know? How do they want to inspire them? So as I had mentioned, I love travel. I love literature. I read every day. And I love history. And which is funny because as a kid, I hated history, but that's because I thought they were just a bunch of dead people that didn't do anything, and so that's why I want to inspire young people. But so really I like to inspire people to know I do have a kind of, they say a tagline, and I think every author needs a tagline. And so my tagline is, my passion is to make scripture and history come alive for my readers, or breathing new life into the pages of history, illuminating the past, making sense of the present, and offering hope for the future, giving my readers hope, heart, and a hero. And I want to give my kids, my readers, young kids, young readers, those three things, and particularly a hero that they can emulate. You know, it's fun to have superheroes, but honestly, we can't really emulate them. We can't go flying off, you know, buildings and that sort of thing. So I want them to have real heroes and heroines that they can emulate, and they can say, you know, I could do that. I could make the difference. I could do that, and give them a purpose, give them hope. And that's really what my brand is.
That's great. That is so good. So are you working on something right now?
I am. I have 2 other middle grade novels, middle grade historical fiction novels that I've completed. One through the Institute of Children's Literature. It takes place in Spain and then on the ocean, and it's a true story of 22 orphan boys that were taken from an orphanage in Spain and brought over to the Americas, back to the Americas. King Charles in Spain felt guilty for the smallpox that had been brought over for, you know, many years before, centuries before, and he wanted to undo it with a vaccine. And so it was kept alive via the boys and brought over. None of them died. None of them were hurt by it. But there's very little history, and so I embellish it. The other one is a novel that takes place at the World Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. My mom actually took me to all the world's fairs during my childhood. Wow. From Seattle to Montreal to New York to Tennessee. And I just loved it. I just found it fascinating. And I've always wanted to go back and just imagine myself at the World Columbian Exposition, because it was just fascinating. It was like the internet to us today. Just so many things that people had never seen before, and they had access to all those things. And so my story is a little bit of adventure, a little bit of mystery about a brother and sister team who go to the fair. Their uncle invites them, and the boy is accused of stealing something. He has a look-alike, and is accused of being a thief. And these little mysterious clues start appearing in his pocket, and he follows the clues and ends up exonerating himself from it. So that's it. So those are 2 that I'm working on. A third one I'm revising. The other 2 are pretty much done, although I think I have more to do. So about a Huguenot girl that comes over from France and escapes to England. So those are the 3 that I've been working on.
Okay. And when can we expect those to be coming out?
Well, when they're sold to a publisher. So okay. It's really, I've still been submitting. I have one with a publisher right now that they're deciding whether or not it's something they want to keep. The World Columbian Exposition novel I have sent many times, and half the time I get a response. They say, well, we like it, but it's really not what we're looking for at this time. Or they could say, I didn't really fall in love with the characters. Or we just published something like that. So just because they reject it doesn't mean it's bad. There's something wrong with the manuscript itself. It just means there are other reasons why. I mean, sometimes it can. But so I've been discouraged about that a little bit, but I know that there's a time and a place for it, and I'll keep working. I just went to a conference, a SCBWI conference, and had a really good manuscript critique. And now I know what I need to do to revise it to hopefully encourage publishers. But historical fiction is a hard sell unless the characters really come to life these days, because they usually have a little bit of fantasy or sci-fi, which I'm a truth teller, and even though I'm writing fiction, I like it to be as truthful as possible. So so anyway, it's a challenge, but I just keep plugging along and just depending on God for the right timing for it, and just keep moving ahead. So
well, that's great. Well, I saw on YouTube that you have a video about being a minimalist writer.
Yes.
Can you just explain to us in a shortened form what that is?
Yes, absolutely. I am into minimalism and get overwhelmed at times at all the things I have to do as a writer. But I had mentioned 7 things. Hopefully I can remember them. The first one, of course, is to read. You should always read in the genre that you're writing in, because you want to keep up with the latest. Of course, you should be writing every day in one way or another, either a blog post or social media, or actually writing with prompts. You can use prompts. Another thing is to connect with other writers. It could be in a conference. It could be definitely in a society that you could, a member of an organization that will encourage you. And connect on, you have one social media platform that you'll find your readers on, that you can, tell about your brand and your story. And the last one is to have a critique group. Very important to have a connection, have a group of people who really care about you and your writing. Mm-hmm. And you can critique each other's work and to make it better. So those are I don't know if there are 7, but anyway, those are the main ones.
Yeah, that is really good. Thank you so much. I wrote them down.
Oh, good. Good.
It is overwhelming when you think about all the things you have to do.
Yes.
And I have not been good at it.
It's hard to be good at everything. You kind of have to pick your battles, I guess.
Yeah, over the years. And another thing you didn't have here, but that I'm really not good at, but you kind of mentioned before, is sending things off to publishers.
Oh, yes, of course. And I think that was one of the 7. Yes, if you don't submit, obviously you're never going to have your book published. So it's having that, it's making sure first with the groups, with your society and your critiques, that your manuscript is the best it can be, and then you start searching for, and these societies and people will help you do that. Search for, there's a market guide for that, by the way, online. You can get it on Amazon. That will help you to find the right publisher for your manuscript. You have to look at what they publish lately. And if your book could not fit in with that, then it's not even worth it to send them. And a lot of them are closed unless you have an agent. So, and it's not necessary to have an agent. It certainly would be nice. And I've been hoping and praying for one for the last 2 or 3 years, but he hasn't come yet, but I just keep plugging along. But anyway, yes, that's important.
Well, that's good, because anything can eat, all these things can eat up our time so much, and then we don't even write.
Right. Yes, right. Exactly.
Well, do you have any other advice for writers that you'd like to leave with us?
Boy, I think I've said pretty much all. I think finding your brand, as I mentioned, reading is very important, and writing is very important, connecting, and being inspired. Whatever you find it inspires you, stick with it. Whatever it is. I mean, it's different for each person. Travel and history is important for me, and I can even go virtually online during these times of COVID. But that inspires me to find out something new, because I want to inspire others with new things that I've discovered and share with them. So whatever inspires you, stick with it, and that will keep you writing. And also challenges like NaNoWriMo, very important. If that's what gets you going, and it does me, to have a challenge to keep you going every day, I would recommend that as well.
Okay, and have a challenge. That's good. I'm trying to work on NaNoWriMo myself this month.
Yes, good for you. That's excellent.
Little by little, but.
Yep, that's right.
Well, Jarm, thank you so much. I will be sure and put your links down connected to this video so everyone can get it. And I encourage everybody, go find out more about Jarm Del Boccio. And I'm always afraid I'm going to say it wrong.
Got it right. That was perfect.
Okay. Yeah, and especially if you know any kids, look up her books and her writings.
Yes, and I do virtual meetings, in classrooms or with parents or whatever. And take a look at my website, jarmdelboccio.com, and look through it. There's a speakers. It tells you what I can share and how I can help out. And there are a few teacher's guides on there and other things to help you, because I really want to help. So
we'll have those links on here where they can find you. And thank you again so much for sharing with us today.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, Terri. I appreciate it.